think that we have to listen to the voices of the people who are most affected by these decisions, because at the end of the day, we can meet all we want. The question is, what impact is that going to have on youth and their parents who are in the CYA? And that's, I think, the greatest challenge. As Chris pointed out, you can have the best intentions for miles and miles and miles, but if you don't take it back home, it doesn't create any tangible result. And I think San Francisco, in many ways, is an example of that. We have over 233 agencies that purport to serve youth. We only have 115,000 people under the age of 18. We spend $300 million on the delivery of youth services in San Francisco. Why don't we have better outcomes and better results? And I think that's the question that all of us as juvenile justice stakeholders, whatever that means, should ask ourselves at the end of the day. Because, again, does the system benefit adults? Yeah, we get paid, right? What benefit does it hold in terms of the community? Because it's not only about a system that is not accountable and just says, okay, go do what you want to do, let's close down CYA, but creates a result that is just and is fair and is equitable. And that's really the goal that we're trying to work towards. And we all agree on that. So many of these meetings are preaching to the choir, I think. But how do we get there in the final analysis? In San Francisco, I think one good decision we have made is to resist sending kids to the California Youth Authority. It's like that old saying, right? If the milk at the corner store is sour, then don't go there. Don't go there. If they're charging you 4 times what you should pay for sour milk, then don't go there. And I think that's key to changing the California Youth Authority, because it's not going to change. When you're getting paid $120,000 a kid, that's more than the cost to go to law school at Stanford. All right? You're going to want to keep that money, right? And now you're serving less kids and you're getting more money? 10,000 kids in it's like McDonald's, 10,000 kids served in 1997, 3,300 now, and yet the budget has gone up. The only way that we're going to change policy in California is to stop sending kids to the California Youth Authority. And there's a couple of theories about what will happen. Some people think that it'll hit a critical mass of maybe 1,500 kids and then it'll stop. But we have to realize that we've had a 50% decrease for a number of reasons between just 2002 and 2005. And that's dramatic. And as those numbers go down, the cost will go up. As David will talk about in a minute, the cost now is something like $120,000 per child. And when it starts getting up to $200,000 per child, then the public is going to start taking notice. But then, what are we going to do with the kids who are, quote, in the system? Because then we won't have CYA to point our fingers at. We're going to be pointing our fingers at each other and saying, well, what about that? Or what about mental health treatment? Or what about this? How come that's not getting done? And I think there's a realization that on the local level, we necessarily have not done a good job either of treating our young people, providing the basic education and health care and mental health at the early stages and also at the back end. And so I think that's one of the challenges that we're facing in San Francisco. Now, it's true that you have leadership, and in San Francisco, we have elected leadership and appointed leadership to the positions in the juvenile justice system. And I think that's important. I mean, from a public defender standpoint, it's important, I think, that a public defender is independently elected. And so that way, you don't serve at the pleasure of the city council or the board of supervisors. Because one of the big problems that you have in the juvenile injustice system is lousy lawyering. You have lawyers who don't care, who don't do a good job, who don't fight for results. That's the difference between a public pretender and a public defender, right? A public pretender pretends that they're doing a good job, and a public defender gives you the Johnny Cochran defense. And so fundamentally, we have to make sure that public defender offices are doing their jobs of holding all of the different agencies accountable. Because I'm sure as my colleague in the district attorney's office will tell you, their job is to prosecute. Our job is to defend. And so in our office, just in the past 6 years, because let me tell you how it's been in many instances, is that the juvenile office of a defender's office has looked at Siberia. If you get in trouble with the boss or you do something you shouldn't do, that's where you get sent. If you're burned out, you don't want to do adult cases anymore. Well, we got to put our best foot forward and make sure we have the best lawyers in that position. We're going to fight for the clients because that is the place where the representation can make the most amount of difference. And so in our office, I mean, we've decreased the caseloads and increased the number of attorneys. You know, you have some of these offices, you know, I sit on a national committee where I look at different standards. In some offices, they have lawyers handling 500 juvenile cases at any given time. These are mostly felony cases now. Now, how can you do a good job? You take the people in this room times them by 2, and you're responsible for all those people? That's pretty scary stuff. And so we had to decrease the number of cases that lawyers were handling in our office from 110 to 40. The other thing is that we need to make sure that the support services exist within the public defender's office. And so it's taken us some time, but now we have a full-time educational advocate, we have a placement specialist, and they work with the other stakeholders. We have, thanks to the Van Loban Foundation, we have a girls social worker who works specifically with girls, and we have a staff of 3 social workers. Though we still have a long way to go. I mean, because we represent 1,400 kids a year. But that's the kind of support that has to be available, you know, to defender offices if they're going to do a job. Otherwise, it is public pretending. You know, you go into court, you don't know the case, you're talking to the client in the hallway, you know, you don't know the family, and the client gets pled out to the California Youth Authority. I think the other big piece is that we do have to work together, and that's something that traditionally has not happened. You have the nonprofit sector, you know, you have each of the fiefdoms within the juvenile system, sometimes competing and fighting with one another. And there has to be not only the same vision, but you have to sort of be at the same steps at the same time together. And it's a very difficult thing to coordinate because you may have your plan together and you may be ready to roll, but your partner, who you're trying to get to dance with you, isn't quite in step. And you know, it's a very cumbersome process to work together. It's not easy. There's a lot of bumps along the way. There's a lot of misunderstanding. You put culture in it, that's a big piece of it. And so in San Francisco, what we've tried to do is develop, you know, more collaborative relationships. That's a, you know, $1 million word if you could only buy collaboration. But what we've tried to do is really taken it to the next step. About 1.5 years ago, we do this Juvenile Justice Summit every year. We call all the advocates together, and we put together a plan that represents what people think needs to happen in San Francisco. And if you're interested in seeing the summit, we televise it. We have it on stream video on our website. It's at www.sfgov.org/PD, and you can watch it. And we invited all of the stakeholders to participate. Bill Sifferman, Bill, you want to raise your hand? He's our new chief probation officer from Chicago. Came all the way to get a guy from Chicago to come to San Francisco. But, you know, he came out to the summit, and we talked about the issues that were of mutual interest in resolving. And then we put together a plan to develop that. In 2004, we created a collaborative called MAGIC, the Mobilization for Adolescent Growth in our communities. And we decided to focus on a community, Bayview Hunters Point. And over the last 1.5 years, we've grown to 52 agencies that are participating. And so much of what we found is, one, you have to start off making sure that you know the facts, having a comprehensive strategy. And there is a comprehensive strategy that was developed during the Clinton years. They put millions of dollars into this plan, the Department of Justice, and they dropped it. They implemented it in about 50 counties, only one small county in California, and they dropped it. But it's a beautiful plan about how people can work together. And with any organization, it's difficult. You know, you go through the honeymoon stage where everybody loves each other. You go through a stage where everybody hates each other. And this, and chief serving watermelon and dessert at the event. Right next to them, you had the counselors, you know, who were setting up tables. Right next to them, you had 50 different community organizations that had activities for kids. And the beauty of it is that a lot of this was all planned by kids who were at one time or in the juvenile justice system. And so by working together and creating real collaborative models, and that's why what the young people were saying on the panel earlier is so important. Most of the success we've had is a result of having young people coming together and saying for themselves what they want to do, as opposed to us saying what we want to do. So again, this is just one example, and we have a long way to go, but we're here to listen, to learn from all of your experiences and continue to work together. Thank you.